Hello everyone, this is Carlos and this is my top 10 list of the best games of 2023. Number 10 on my list is Risk of Rain Returns. It's a remake of Risk of Rain, which originally came out in 2013. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it is a 2D platformer in which you pick up items which change your character's attributes and give you new abilities. And the longer you play the game, the harder it gets. So there's this kind of balancing act that has to take place between how quickly do you clear each stage? Do I want to spend some more time here grabbing more items that are going to make me stronger, or do I want to get this stage over with? Because the longer I stay in this stage, the difficulty is going to keep going up. It maintains the same gameplay formula that the original did, but it's got some really nice pixel art and great music. Gameplay is crazy, like the items stack with each other, they compound their effects, and all of the classes available are play very differently from each other, and depending on which items you get, two playthroughs with the same class might have you playing very differently. It's fun, it's hard. Can't wait for the Risk of Rain 2 DLC, which is coming out, I think, next year. That's gonna be pretty good. And they also added these thing called Providence Trials to the game, and these are little challenges that you can do to unlock new abilities or new skins for your characters. And what they do is they force you to play in very specific ways. Like they'll have you complete a stage with a character using only a specific set of abilities or modifiers. And they're really fun. Like some of them will have you run a race. Like you'll have to run a race through a stage as fast as you can. And all you have available are like items that make you faster or items that give you extra jumps. There's even one challenge that has you play through like Dracula's castle from Castlevania, and you spawn as the one character whose item is a whip, and all you can use is the whip. It does cool things like that. Oh, and by the way, this game cost me, let me see real quick, $14.99. I'm gonna go, because not only do I believe that I have the best list, I think I also have the most value for the dollar list. So we're gonna give a rundown at the end of how cheap my list is. This was $14.99 plus tax. Number 9 on my list is Teleforum. This is a sort of FMV found footage horror game in which you're part of a TV crew that is on their way to interview the widow of a TV presenter who recently committed suicide on the air after having watched a mysterious tape. And you're trying to find out just exactly what happened, as well as what was on the tape that made him do such a thing. I'm a really big fan of the concept of cursed media. Things like The Ring, even if when The Ring came out back in the day, I wasn't really a big fan of it. But I think that might have been just me being a contrarian because everyone else around me seemed to think that it was really cool. I haven't watched it since. Maybe I'll rewatch it one of these days and I'll be able to appreciate it for what it is. Because I mean, if a lot of people like it, then it has to be good, right? I do remember that I thought the actual cursed videotape from The Ring, like the imagery that plays, I thought that was really neat looking. It's like these black and white grainy images of like a centipede crawling, or like a woman jumping off a cliff, a close-up of the eye of a horse. I thought that was really cool. So after watching the movie, when I got home, I looked up to see if that video was posted online, and I found it and I downloaded it because I thought it was neat. And then after I had watched it, because I was young, right? I was like a teenager. I started thinking like, wait, what if this is for real? And I got scared, and then I told someone else to watch it. I was like, hey, watch this video, man, it's really cool. Just to play it safe, you know. But yeah, I like the concept of cursed media, you know, like something made by a person that has this like malignant properties with it, and that it, you know, causes harm to the person that made it, and also has the power to cause harm to people that consume it, you know. It either be like a book or a song, like I think maybe the first instance of something like this was that short story The King in Yellow, right, where there's this play that supposedly makes people mad. I can't remember if it's when they read it or when they see it being performed. But you'll see that cursed media is a recurring concept, a recurring idea throughout my list. Earlier this year, too, I read this pretty cool short novella called Scanlines. It was Scanlines here. Let me see. It was written by Todd Keisling. And it's actually got sort of a similar plot to Teleform. Not similar plot, but it's kind of based around the same concept. What happens in that story is that a couple of friends back in the 90s, you know, the early days of the internet, they know of this urban legend of a politician who killed himself on live TV. And one day they actually find, because the legend says that, well, the legend says that it happened like for real, right? But that nobody has a copy of the tape of the incident happening. But then one day they actually find the video online, and it takes them forever to download it, right? Because this is back in the 90s. They have like dial-up internet, but then they become obsessed with this video. You know, it's also a type of cursed media, and it starts kind of like influencing them to having darker and darker thoughts. So that's kind of what Teleform is about. It's also free, which is gonna be a recurring theme in my list as well, as you will soon see. So far, looks like we've spent $14.99. Not bad. My number 8 is Kill the Crows. This is a top-down, Western-themed shooter in which both you and the enemies die in one hit. It plays in a single arena, and different types of enemies start spawning in, and you have to kill them before they kill you. And there's multiple types of weapons you can unlock and different abilities which let you lock onto multiple enemies at once. There's also multiple enemies, each with their own different behavior. Like some of them will only attack you in melee, some of them attack you at range, some of them you can't shoot from the front, you need to figure out how to get behind them. But it's a really zen game. It's almost perfected the idea of the time waster game. You know, a game that you sit down thinking, oh, I'm gonna play, you know, a couple minutes of this, because a run of this game is probably gonna last. It's endless, right? But for the average person, a run of this is gonna be like maybe 3 to 4 minutes before they slip up and get killed and die. And you'll you know, fire it up thinking, I'm just gonna, you know, play this for a couple minutes while my pizza warms up or whatever. And then before you know it, you've been playing this for hours and your pizza's already gone heated up and gone cold and you forgot about it. It is really good. I played a lot of it because I'm also bad at it, but that doesn't mean that I am not having a good time. Now, this was a $3.99 game, so this is getting more into the premium tier category of my list. But never mind. Number 7 on my list is Unsorted Horror. Wait, is that? Yes, Unsorted Horror. I almost called it Untold Horror, but that is because this game is kind of similar to Stories Untold, if someone were to ask me to describe it to them. What this is a collection of 5 short horror games. They're all first person and they all have the player, you, interacting with different types of machinery in very like dark, industrial, grimy settings. Like all 5 games are good. There's a couple standouts obviously, but they're all worth playing. They all share the same similarities in that you are interacting with machinery to like perform certain tasks. Like sometimes you're trying to like set yourself free from something. Sometimes you're trying to stay alive in, you know, some cruel, harsh conditions. But the game has a very tactile feel. You have to explore, interact with the environment, figure out how things work by using the elements of the game itself. Like if you need to read instructions as to how to operate one of the machines in one of the games, you have to like walk up to a computer terminal and navigate through the pages in the digital manual that's there to figure out what you have to do. As you get further and further in each game, you also become more skilled at the tasks that you are given. So it kind of feels like a job almost, in that the first couple of minutes are you receiving your training, figuring out what to do to trial and error. But then once the situations typically escalate, like you know what to do, and now it becomes a matter of, are you good enough to do all of these things quickly and efficiently? So there's like a 2-step process to how these games play out. First, you have to figure out what to do, make sure you understand how everything in the game works and how you're supposed to use it. And then you're supposed to like be an expert, because the situation is dire, and if you don't do it, they're gonna fuck you. They're gonna fuck you good. This was free, which maintains our running total. Oh man, I forgot to add Kill the Crows. $18.98 plus tax. $18.98 plus tax, and we're already on game 8. Like any of these other guys, they probably already spent like $800, you know? I'm looking out not only for your reputation as a person of good taste, but I'm also looking out for your wallet. Number 6 on my list is Disfigure. This is a game that follows the now extremely popular vampire survivors. Like, what are we calling those? I've heard a lot of people call them reverse bullet hell games. but I've also heard people call them bullet heaven games because you're the one creating the bullets, right? I think that's my favorite term for those kinds of games. So this is one of those, but it also adds a feature which appeals to me a lot. It's something that I'm a really big fan of when it's present in games, and that is like fog of war. That's fog of war for like a top-down or isometric game, like what we've seen in games like Darkwood or Door Kickers or Project Zomboid. You know, where like you're basically only able to see what your character is seeing from a top-down perspective, right? And if there's anything in front of you, it obscures it. Well, in this figure, there isn't anything in the screen to like obscure your vision, but you get to toggle between two different types of vision because you're fighting against creepy crawlies in the dark. You have like a circle vision that lets you see all around you in a small radius, but you can also toggle to a cone vision that gives you a slightly further view at the cost of not being able to see around you 360 degrees. And there's a lot of skill trees, just like there is in Vampire Survivors, that give you different weapons, different abilities, and some of these skill trees are specific to the two different vision types, right? So you might go down the path. You might go down a path where your skill tree improves your cone vision by making it longer, by making it hurt enemies more. And so like whenever you need to clear a path through like a wall of enemies to get to a safe space, you switch to your cone vision and like punch a hole through the wall because you're able to do a lot more damage. But then maybe you're surrounded by enemies, there's a lot of things going on, you switch back to circle vision to kind of catch your bearings. And it also has a little bit more agency than Vampire Survivors because it's not like an auto shooting game. You can toggle auto shooting on and off, but based on what skills you select to upgrade your character with, there are times in which you might want to toggle that off because certain abilities only toggle whenever you, for example, fired 6 shots. So you don't want to be like auto firing because you want to make sure you save that 6th shot that's going to trigger a special ability for a specific moment, or to shoot it off in a specific direction. Like the skill trees, they have the same kind of synergy with each other that the items in these bullet heaven games do, and they make for really fun, really tense gameplay. I also really like the fact that your weapon sounds, like the abilities triggering, they're all very in rhythm. It's almost like they have these percussive sound effects. You know, you're shooting your guns like pop, 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 boom, and then an ability goes off. So it kind of almost feels like you're starting to create music as you're, staying alive in a stage. You know, the beats created by your shots and the enemies exploding and enemies dying and shooting back at you. They create a really cool soundscape which vibes really well with the game's aesthetic. This game is also free, and it's received multiple updates since I started playing it late last year. It's had like new weapons, new stages, new skill trees, new art. This is like, for a while thinking up of this list, because this is like something that you gotta like keep in the back of your mind throughout the year, like, oh, okay, what games am I gonna put on my top 10 when it's time to make one? For the longest time, this was my number one. My number 5 is Nick's top 10 video. I'm sitting here at home on a Monday night recording this the day Nick's video released, and he must think this is some kind of game if he makes a top 10 for the year 2023 with no Resident Evil 4 remake on it.
Aside from being another welcome take on
What is this kid doing?
cracks the world design wide open in a way that the series that inspired it simply hasn't attempted yet.
Number 4 on my list is Resident Evil 4. I can't believe it. It actually happened. They actually did it. The only one good enough to take on the king and put on the crown was the king himself. $60. My number 3 game is Buckshot Roulette. I'm sure everybody knows about this game now. It's spread around the internet a lot lately. It's been on TikToks, it's been on YouTube, it's been on Twitch streams. Everybody's been playing this game. And it's no flavor of the month. It is genuinely a masterpiece. This game is made by Mike Klubnica, hope I'm pronouncing that right, who also made Unsorted Horror, which featured earlier on my list. This game is all vibes. This is all vibes. The way the game begins with you in the bathroom of a grim, dirty nightclub, where you can hear the music just pounding outside, and you kick the door down, and then you go face to face with the dealer, who looks like one of those frozen, like, smiley face potato things. This game is crazy, man. It's like, I don't know. It reminds me of the opening of Irreversible, where you're like kicking down a door into a French nightclub that's called the Butthole or something, and beating some dude's face in with a fire extinguisher. Except you're the one who's getting their face beaten in with a fire extinguisher. Phenomenal. $1.20. I would have paid $5. My number 2 game of 2023 was Fantasy Critic, the 4-player network 2023 Fantasy Critic League. It made me completely reevaluate the way I think about video games. It just made me take a step back and really think about my hobby. Now this could have been free, but it's not. It cost me $50 because I came in last place because of some very, very bad decisions made, not only on draft night but also throughout the year. But 2024, it's gonna be my year. It's gonna be my year, man. Like, I know I got a killer lineup. I'm gonna do really good. At least I won't be last. Chris Davis is probably gonna be last. But anything can change. But like I was saying at the beginning, it made me completely reevaluate how I think about games and their reception. Like I was no longer thinking about games that I was excited for. Like I wasn't thinking about actually getting the chance to play them or talk about them with someone else. I was 100% focused on what is this going to score? How many points is it going to get me in Fantasy Critic? Like, even if I knew that a game was good, I mean, a couple of bad reviews could, bring down its average enough for it to be a pretty bad hit for my league. And our 2024 league, now that everyone's kind of more knowledgeable about how it works and what kind of things you should be looking at when making your picks throughout the year, it sounds like it's going to be a really good year. I'm excited. And also, it also made me realize just how jam-packed 2023 was with quality titles. I have my notebook here where I had written down my prospects for the 2023 draft, and it's multiple pages. And when we did our draft for 2024, like, I couldn't even write down a third of the games that I had written down for 2023. Like there just isn't as many heavy hitters coming out, which is cool. That means that without question, there's going to be a lot of surprises, a lot of stuff that we don't know about yet, and stuff that I will be very interested in gauging reception for. Because it's not only about a game being good, it's also about a game reviewing well, because those are two completely different things. I mentioned something earlier on my list about cursed media, and I said that it was gonna come back up again. So here we are at my number 1, myhouse.wad. For the few of you that have not heard about this, let me get you caught up to speed. myhouse.wad is a mod for the old school shooter Doom. Now, the backstory for this mod is that there's a thing called the Doom World Forums, which is where modders and map makers upload their creations to share with others so that everybody can play and provide feedback on. So, one day, a user named Steve, I believe that's the user's name, uploaded a map called My House. He said that a dear friend of his had recently passed away, and that they used to enjoy working on Doom levels as kids, and that when going through his friend's stuff, he found an unfinished map that he had been working on. So to honor his friend's legacy, he decided to finish it up and publish it for the world to see. Now, once you launch the map within Doom, you're treated to an in-game recreation of Steve's childhood friend's home, which might be familiar to anyone who's ever dabbled into creating content for a game. Usually it's very common for people to try recreating places they're familiar with, right? Because it's something something that you're able to recreate from memory, like your home, right? So you go into Steve's childhood friend's home, you fight some demons. The house even looks like it's focused on being a realistic recreation. Sometimes the hallways feel they're too narrow to navigate. They make sense for a real person to walk through them, but they're not wide enough for the kind of mobility that video games allow players, right? But yeah, once you start exploring this house, some things start to get a little crazy. Sometimes things that were in one place are in a different one. Sometimes things look different. Slight changes begin escalating until you are set down a path that is very frightening. I streamed this when I first heard of it. I remember streaming it to what I believe was its entirety. It was around a 2-hour stream, I believe, and it messed me up for the rest of the day. It has some genuinely unsettling moods and vibes and ideas, and for a lot of this stuff to work, you have to approach it with suspension of disbelief. You have to actually believe that this is a haunted piece of computer code that you're interacting with. It's easy to do because the work is so well made on at every level. It's a technical achievement, an artistic achievement. This is a real piece of art. This thing is so impressive that it's made its way outside of the Doom community to where people who don't normally talk about this kind of thing are talking about it. Obviously the theme of a haunted place that defies the laws of reality. You can draw parallels between that and the book House of Leaves, which the game takes inspiration from. Like, I believe the author of House of Leaves even gave My House What a shout out on their Twitter. Like, YouTubers that don't usually mess around with Doom content, they're talking about it. And while getting ready to record this, I actually went back and watched a full playthrough / analysis of the mod to kind of like reacquaint myself with it so that I'd be able to talk about it a little better. And remember how I said earlier that I streamed the whole thing, in quotes, during like a 2-hour stream? I was wrong. There is so much of this game that I missed. There are so many things that I didn't know were possible. There are so many places in the game that I didn't go to. There's so many things that, like, an experienced Doom mapper. This I got from watching the analysis video. Like, there's little things in the mod that, like me as an average player, like I just start the mod and play it. But like, experienced Doom mappers would realize that something was off much sooner than the average player would, because this thing messes with you like in every possible dimension. It is uncanny. This feels to me like the kind of thing that if it had received a more sort of like mainstream release, like if it was some kind of like standalone game running with some kind of alternate reality game, like, this is something that I can see people talking about for years. Like, it might happen. Like, people might be talking about this for years. This is like all of those creepypastas about haunted games that you've read about. Except this is a real one of those that you get to play. And not only that, but it's also an incredible piece of narrative fiction.